Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
It's time for The Drive with Q on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Now, here's Q.
Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on a Man Up Monday edition of The Drive with Q, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game studios, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, part of the Coastal Sports Network. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Mi hermano, Angel Martinez, enjoying a nice Monday off, a well-deserved Monday off. We got you covered for 2 hours, 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved in two-way sports talk, bring something to the table, a lot to discuss as we are making a little bit of headway in the NFL. With the playoffs, Wild Card Weekend, we made it through Wild Card Weekend, which someone would say was a snooze fest. Aside from what transpired last night, the Commanders have arrived. I cannot wait. Wait to get on the Bucs fans today. I really can't. Because all I heard was for the past month and a half, Bucs, Baker Mayfield, Baker Mayfield, MVP. All right, we're going to get into all that nonsense. Eagles went ugly. Bills impressive. Ravens very impressive. We'll man up. I will go to my picks 4-1, by the way, pending tonight's outcome, perhaps 5-1 tonight. And then you have the news coming down in the NFL that the Dallas Cowboys and Mike McCarthy have decided to go their separate ways. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So we will dive into Mike McCarthy, no longer the Dallas Cowboys head coach, which I would say probably appeases a lot of the Dallas Cowboys fans. If you're an Eagles fan, a Washington fan, or a Giants fan, maybe you think to yourself, hey, stick around for a little bit. But you got to start with, I thought last night was a great win for the Washington Commanders. I really believe that they have arrived. And I got hammered for saying this prior to the season starting. I told you guys I was very adamant. I was very cocky. I was very arrogant about the fact, brash, if you will. I don't believe anyone picked Washington to make the playoffs, let alone potentially win a playoff game, except this guy right here, yours truly. And I'll tell you, last night, this is why sometimes you guys have to pump the brakes when you throw at me quarterbacks that you believe have to be in the MVP conversation. You have to throw this guy in the MVP conversation. I can't believe you're dismissing a quarterback like Baker Mayfield. And last night was the perfect example of the good Baker and the bad Baker. And you saw it last night in a game that was a white knuckler if you're a Washington Commanders fan and a Bucs fan. And Washington on the road as a dog, they hung around. Listen, there were a couple calls in that game that I would say questionable by Quinn. But late in the game, this is the difference between a really good head coach and also trusting a young player. And that's exactly what you saw last night. Look, Washington goes into the locker room 10-10, and you're feeling pretty good about yourselves if you're a Commanders fan. If you're a Bucs fan, you're thinking to yourself, this is not going to be good. They're not going away. So Washington comes out of the break. They get the field goal, which I thought was a smart move. Tampa comes right back. Really nice drive by Baker and the gang, 17-13. Washington turns it on downs, 17-13, remains, and then the fumble. And that, look, I mean, you got to call it for what it is, man. This is what Baker Mayfield does. I mean, he's as good as a quarterback that Baker is, and the numbers that he puts up are gaudy. Baker Mayfield, at the end of the day, is a turnover guy. He's a turnover waiting to happen. And I like Baker. I think Baker's a good quarterback. But this should now, and we're going to get on the quarterbacks because, trust me, some of them are not getting a pass this weekend. They're not. Some of them just didn't even show up. But Baker, this is what you get. You get the good Baker that can go 80 yards with a $136 down by 6 and one timeout. And then you get the bad Baker. And Washington, what do? They hung around, they took advantage of it. And this is where I think is arguably one of the gutsiest calls that you can say over the last 25, 30 years if you're a Washington fan. On 4th and 2. 4th and 2, where logic says kick the field goal on the road, put pressure on Tampa Bay. What does Quinn do? He entrusts his quarterback, Jaden Daniels, Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Here we go, perennial MVP candidate down the road, quarterback to be reckoned with. I'm giving you the ball on 4th down. Go out and friggin' make a play. And that's exactly what he did. Rifles in, ultimately the game-winning touchdown. Well, I should say the go-ahead touchdown. Tampa Bay comes back, and then you saw. What do you do here if you're Jaden Daniels? You have an opportunity, Tampa Bay. Make a stop. Make a stop. 3rd and 2, Tampa Bay 19, 55 ticks to go. Daniels, like flag football, get out of here. Goes away from the tearaway jersey, picks up the 1st down. They milk it. They milk down the clock. Gonzalez with the doink. And there we go. Tampa wins at 23-20. That's a hell of a win. I'm sorry, Washington wins at 23-20. That's a hell of a win for Washington. For everyone that got on me and said, what the hell are you talking about with the Washington Commanders? They're going to stink this year. You know, for the Bunker Boys and Trevor, who basically told me to shut up in August, September, get off Washington, you know, Baker Mayfield. Hey, where was the MVP in Baker last night? Daniels is a stud. Jaden Daniels in Washington has arrived. Now, are they going to get their doors blown out against the Lions? Who knows? So you got that half, right, of the bracket down right there. Washington and Detroit. Tonight, Minnesota, the Rams, the winner will play the Eagles, who didn't look impressive against Green Bay. And really, if I'm going to hammer Baker Mayfield, how do you not get on Jordan Love? I mean, how do you what this guy's supposed to be a franchise quarterback. He's supposed to be a franchise quarterback. I didn't see any franchise quarterbacking plays. I saw missed throws, bad decisions, bad reads. I got to trust Jordan Love going forward if I'm a Packers fan? I mean, that game, it felt, and I mentioned it on the broadcast with Burkhardt and Brady, that game felt like the Eagles were up 27-0. And the Eagles did not play their cleanest game. But you know what they did defensively? They made plays. Defensively, they made plays. A 10-point lead was more than enough to put pressure on Green Bay. It was more than enough. And then I told you, too, on Friday or Saturday, I told you, $160 for Saquon. And what happens? He could have easily had it. And he decides, you know what, let me just get down on the ground and milk the clock. It wasn't pretty. But come playoff time, who cares? All you want to do is get out of there with a W. And that's exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles did. You know, for a team that rested starters, for Jalen Hurts knocking off the rust, you know, coming back off the concussion, that's a game where you got rid of Green Bay and now you await the winner tonight. And a lot of people think whether it's going to be the Rams or the Minnesota Vikings, the Eagles are going to smoke either one of those teams. I think the better matchup would be with Minnesota offensively, see how they key up against the Philadelphia Eagles in that secondary. Dean's lost, which is a bad blow. Goddard had a big game yesterday. Hurts, you know, he got out of there unscathed, made a couple plays, and the defense did the rest. The defense did the rest. So we'll get into tonight's game. But Saturday, if you listen to Saturday's show, we did our wild card special. I'm going to get to the comments in a second. A lot of you guys are chiming in, and I always appreciate it. I was way off on the Chargers. I mean, you want to talk about a man up Monday, and you guys want to give it to me on that one. That was not a good pick by me. I just thought the Texans were trending down and the Chargers were trending up. And again, I feel like today's theme is going to be the quarterbacking play. Because if I'm criticizing Baker Mayfield, a veteran, if I'm going to criticize Jordan Love, supposed to be a franchise quarterback, how do you not get on, you know, Justin Herbert? I mean, Justin Herbert, almost like a poor man's Ryan Tannehill. I mean, that was just a brutal game. That was a brutal game. And it's not like they did anything. Houston didn't do anything remarkable. They just defensively, they had a really good game plan and they ran the ball well with Joe Mixon. They ran for $168. But Herbert, horrible. 4 picks. Pick sixes left and just a bad loss by the Chargers. A bad loss. And I don't want to hear, you know, even with Denver, you know, Denver jumps out 7-0 and all of a sudden Bronco ball and Denver Nation is going nuts. Relax, man. You just knew it wasn't going to last, right? We knew it wasn't going to last. Baltimore, Buffalo Bills just run a roughshod. But I don't want to hear from Cincinnati fans today because you guys are getting on me on X. Like, if you have a problem with the way the NFL playoffs are constructed, then, you know, don't start your season 0-3. Don't start your season 1-4 and cry. We don't want to hear it. So you had the Texans thumping the Chargers. Nice bounce back game for CJ Stroud. They ran the ball. Chargers, very nice year. They're going to ascend in the offseason. Obviously, they need to make some moves. They need a couple more weapons on the offensive line side of the ball. Pass protection was an issue the other day. So that's something we'll talk about in the offseason when we kind of go around the league. And the Ravens game, I told you this. And I'm waiting for the Steeler fan today to come at me on a Monday. I'm waiting for the Steeler fan. I basically gave you that whole game was heard right on a Saturday. I said 3 things about that game. 3 things about that game that if you decided you were going to bet on the game, if you decided to do, not only was I giving you anytime touchdown and friggin' player props, but what did I say? If Derrick Henry starts hitting that second gear, if they can't attack him at the line of scrimmage, long day. Lamar Jackson going to make some plays with his legs, long day. Andrews is going to have a stellar game, long day. And that's exactly what happened. And the Steelers, because I want to hear from Steelers fans today, and you guys know who you are, but I want to hear Steelers fans today really thinking that Mike Tomlin is the answer going forward. I'll wait. Because they didn't even show up. You got Herb Street blasting them for just rolling over like a bunch of friggin' dogs. I mean, Derrick Henry, you want to talk about Lamar Jackson stepping up and Derrick Henry, how the hell do you give up 300 yards rushing in a playoff game? And this whole nonsense, we're going to get Fields in and out and in and out. Really? I mean, I bet you Steelers fans were sitting there when it was 21-7. They actually thought they had a chance. Never had a chance in hell to win that game. And to add insult to injury, as I alluded to, 299, 6 yards. They couldn't even run the ball. Pittsburgh couldn't even run the ball. I'm done with the Steelers. I don't want to. Steelers fans, you want to come at me on a Monday? Come at me on a Monday, but man up too, because you guys were just in my face, talking about how the Steelers can win this game. Mike Tomlin, the greatest friggin' head coach since sliced bread in the world. He invented football. Okay, have fun with Tomlin. You don't have a quarterback under contract, by the way. You don't have a quarterback under contract, but have fun with Tomlin. You got the vote of confidence. You don't have a quarterback, but have fun with Tomlin. So you got the Ravens taking care of business as we thought they were. Buffalo down 7-3, ripping off 28, and whitewashing Denver 31-7. Eagles ugly, and then Commanders last night with a hell of a win. Right now, by the way, the Vikings line has crept back up to 2.5. 727-858-6650. Let's see what you guys have to say. 14, what is it? We got a 20 past the 4 o'clock hour. I'll say this before I get to the comments. I was not overly impressed with what's going on in the NFL playoffs. I really wasn't. I mean, what do we got here? This is what? Because we're playing commercials? We had to get commercials in? Man, how long we got to wait for the show? Oh my God. There's no diva move here. Stop. You got to get the sponsors in, man. It could have been worse. I could have gave you the eye on TV guy. I didn't do that, did I? I did not do that, did I? A lot of comments coming. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see. Half of these I'm not even going to read with you goofballs. Half of these I'm not even going to read with some of these comments. Can we get to talking some sports and football on this Man Up Monday? 727-858-6650. Let me see what you guys have to say. Let's see what you guys have to say. Yes, it is definitely a Manolo Monday. Angels doing 200 miles an hour around Daytona. Angels, you know what? A much needed day of rest, man. That's all it is. Joey B chiming in early, which we always like. Q shot out of a cannon today. Well, yeah, because I'm tired of hearing about some of these quarterbacks. I'm tired of hearing about some of these quarterbacks and how we have to bow down to. Some of these quarterbacks stunk over the weekend, okay? Some of them stunk. Bad news for the bunker. Dallas could be a threat again. Well, it depends on what direction the Dallas Cowboys decide they're going to go. I mean, who's going to be their next coach? Who's going to want that job and have Jerry Jones on top of you like that? Let me see what you guys are saying on X, on Facebook as well. Joe D chiming in. Q, I knew you were going to start with the bashing of Baker. He had one fumble, but look at the numbers this season. Yes, no matter what happened last night, I still put him in the MVP conversation. Yeah, I'm not doing it. The MVP, you saw this weekend, Josh Allen made ridiculous throws. Lamar Jackson was making ridiculous plays. Jaden Daniels was making ridiculous plays. And I'm not going to tell you that Jaden Daniels is an MVP. Jaden Daniels is going to give the NFC East fits. NFC East fits. Oh, and the other thing, and I know you guys are going to laugh, but do we see who the Patriots hired? Mike Grable. So you take him off the list of coaching candidates potentially for your squad. Do you not? He was introduced today with the Pats, and I know Patriot Nation is very fired up and excited to see that he is back with the franchise where he had a substantial amount of success. Kevin in North Jersey chiming in. Q, I know I'm watching these playoffs and I'm thinking to myself, my God, if the Giants only had an offensive line, defensive players, and a quarterback, they'd be there right there. Well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing. This is not about the Jets or the Giants. There's nothing to really talk about with those teams, right? They're at the barbecue. They're at the barbecue. I thought the most impressive performance over the weekend, I think Jaden Daniels going on the road in Washington, they showed a lot of poise. They showed a lot of guts. I mean, the kid flat out, he just makes plays. That's what we talk about, coaching and culture. And look at Washington. And look at the players that they have, right? And I will say this, Evans was just eating last night against Lattimore. That was a matchup nightmare, and I thought maybe the Bucs would try to exploit it a lot more, man. I mean, you can take the player out of the Saints, they're still going to cry, bitch, whine, and complain. I mean, that was a bad matchup. I mean, right now, the Lions are looking at this film. We're going to have a field day. But I thought it was a great win for Washington. That's a franchise that's been so downtrodden for so long. And I think it's a really bad loss for the Bucs. You can't lose a playoff game at home. You can't. Texans won, Ravens won, Bills won, Eagles won. I mean, Tampa Bay, look at the numbers and the stats and everything they put up. You got a rookie quarterback making his playoff debut on the road. You cannot allow that kid to make plays. And that's exactly what he did last night. It's exactly what he's done all season long. He just sits in the pocket, or he understands he can read defenses. He's very fast when it comes to making decisions. And if you're Tampa Bay, you got to be kicking yourself, man. You really have to be kicking yourself. Because a lot of people thought the Bucs, the way their offense was, and also, too, how do you not run the ball with a lot more authority and a lot more consistency if you're Tampa Bay, knowing that the Washington Commanders have one of the worst ranked run defenses in the NFL? Bad loss, Bucs fans. I got to hear from you today. All right, quickie timeout, 25 past 4 o'clock hour. We will get to your comments on the other side. I promise. Don't forget, we are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. Get your savings right now. Check out the show notes also from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey, and also their new store in Maloro, open 7 days a week. And hey, we know the weather's been crappy in Jersey, Delaware, New York, Philly, but if you are in Florida, and that's where a lot of our listening audience is, swing on by to my good friends over at Zen Auto Concepts in Stuart, Florida, the #1 detailing shop in the state of Florida. We'll open up your comments as well. On the other side, you can connect with me on Facebook and on X at RichQonQ. Just cranking up on a Man Up Monday. You guys got to start manning up as well, because some of you knuckleheads were giving it to me on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and you have yet to man up. Or, as the man says, on Manolo Monday, you have to man up. You have to. Those are the rules. And without rules, there's no organization. And with no organization, there's utter chaos. Quickie timeout. We will come back on the other side, and we will get to your texts. We will get to your comments. We will continue the conversation with the NFL. Also, where I think some of these vacancies, some of these head coaching vacancies, how they're going to play out. And I also have some thoughts, too, on the Rooney Rule, which it just seems like it's non-existent. Quick timeout.
Hey, Dad, Your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
Always good to hear from Bumper Guy on this as we let it run out. There we go. 727-858-6650. We'll take
Don't forget to get social with us.
Whoa, did we
Follow
fire
Q
Bumper Guy
at
off?
Rich Q on Q.
How about this? You know what it is? I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. So I fire Bumper Guy off like this, which means I have to let him play out. So hold on.
Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
There we go. See if he fires off one more time. I feel as though I've touched a nerve. Wait, hold on a second. We're going to...
Don't forget to get social with us.
Today?
Follow Q at Rich Q on Q.
I mean, really? This is what we're doing right now? Holy Christ. Jesus, God, 727-858-6650. I feel like I've gotten under the skin of Steelers fans. I do. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm really not. I am not trying to do that at all. And no, I'm not. Listen, the patting on my back. What are you talking about? Stop it. That's ridiculous. Scary thing is Eagles get their rust game out of the way. It might be on and popping next week. Eagles in Detroit, book it. What, for the NFC Championship? I don't know. Look at this. Steelers fan decided to show up on a Monday. What's up, fellas? What's up, Vince? And there's a couple of shots fired out back in me. I don't know if there's any more room left on Q's back for Pat. Because you guys, okay, when I screw up, I never hear the end of it. Mispronunciations, never hear the end of it. Fact check stats, never hear the end of it. Bold proclamations and predictions, never hear the end of it. 4-1. I'm allowed to brag about that. I'm allowed to brag about that. Am I not? I nailed the Ravens. Nailed that. Completely nailed it. And Washington, and you guys just want to hate. Trevor, should have went to Fields. He is a much better athlete. I'm a little surprised with that. All week long, we heard Tomlin mentioned that they were going to try to incorporate a lot more into Fields. And to Trevor's point, look, I mean, you got no quarterback under contract. I thought maybe that would have been an opportunity. You can turn around and see what this kid has. But the Tomlin stuff, I just, why are you guys so... I feel as though any other coach, man, I mean, he had his run the second year, but they can't get over the hump with him. They just can't. And a lot of times, man, there's a shelf life with some of these coaches. Coaching and quarterback plays at an all-time low in the National Football League. It is. It is. The Bulls last night, again, with the clock management. I mean, how many times have we seen it? We saw it with Atlanta and their head coach. We saw it in New Orleans, saw it with the Giants and Dable with clock management. We've seen it with Sirianni. We've seen it all across the board. And the quarterback play, is it because we don't have the patience? We're not building around these guys. The expectations are too high. Explain to me how some of these quarterbacks have regressed. We were talking about Justin Herbert as a potential MVP candidate this year and gaudy numbers, and he was horrible. And then CJ Stroud regresses, but then he plays well. Now all of a sudden he's a top 15, top 10 quarterback again after 1 week. It really makes no sense. It just doesn't. Mayfield played himself out of the MVP race. It's the playoffs. No one cares, though. MVP race, it is a regular season award. Baker Mayfield was not winning the MVP. Let's move on. Let's move on, right? Come on. This guy had Houston when no one in the country had him. Well, I mean, that's a good pick, I guess we can say, right? Let me see what my man Vince has to say on the Steelers. Because I know I wonder if he's okay with Tomlin coming back. I was literally talking to a buddy about how kids don't start playing tackle until like 14. Technique, passion, IQ is extremely watered down. So I think where you're right in that statement, and it's a good comment. The technique, definitely. I feel as though everything is almost like a highlight reel. Like, how many times are you watching these games with your buddies and you're like, oh my God, wrap them up. Like, just make the textbook tackle, look the ball in, shed the block properly, control your gap, understand gap discipline. We don't see any of that. These guys want to hit high. You're not hitting Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley up high. You're not. You got to wrap them up, go low. They'll bulldoze you. The technique is lost 100%. And even wrapping up. And I also think to a lesser degree, the rules, the way we protect the quarterback now, guys are so, I mean, what was the game yesterday? Was it the Washington game? I think it was the Washington game where Daniels went out of bounds. It was clear as day, a roughing the passer. They didn't call it. But then there was a play earlier in the day where it was ticky-tack. And the running back ran out of the pocket, so he's a running back, free reign, and they called the penalty. So it's like guys are like, and we can talk about the officiating, but I think they're very scared sometimes to really hit or wrap guys up, right? For fear of a flag, right? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, listen, Derrick Henry's unbelievable. He looks so thin because he changed his diet, but it's incredible. This was a bad matchup for Pittsburgh. It was a bad match. They were not able to control the line of scrimmage. You fall behind. You just knew they were going to start feeding Derrick Henry. He is beyond scary. You do not want to think about tackling him. When you run for 200 yards as a team in a playoff game, you're basically, it's old school football, right? Run the football, get to the quarterback. That's how you win in the National Football League. Run the football, get to the quarterback, play defense, right? Because it goes hand in hand. That's how you win come playoff time. The Ravens, I mean, if the Ravens play like this, they're going to beat Buffalo and they're going to beat Kansas City. If they can run the ball and average close to, 6.6 yards a carry, almost 300 yards, makes life a lot easier. A lot easier, right? Second, third, I think we both know that. It's very hard to tackle these guys. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. They just attack the line of scrimmage right through the secondary. I'm telling you, I would not want to touch these guys at all, man. They're rough. They're rough. They're rough. They're big time. Brady's won 3 Super Bowls since Tomlin won a playoff game. Lopestar 22. Appreciate you checking in. Yeah, what's the love affair with Tomlin? Seriously. I know, what was it? Jimmy Johnson or Bradshaw, I think it was Jimmy Johnson, mentioned yesterday, if you're Dallas or the Jets, would you trade for Mike Tomlin? If you're a team, would you trade draft picks for Mike Tomlin? I pulled up, and again, Mike Tomlin will eventually go in the Hall of Fame as a head coach. But if you look at Mike Tomlin, if you really break down his playoff record, he's lost a lot, man. And I know the Steeler fan will come at me and say, well, wait a second. They're there every single solitary season. Okay. But you haven't won a Super Bowl in how many years? And the other thing is, I think you listen to some of these players now. I mean, if you're a Steelers fan, you got to listen to Pickens. That kid just seems to throw everyone under the bus. And the last thing you want as a head coach to be pushed to kind of the brink of, your playoff resume. It's like up and down, up and down, up and down. See, that's the problem. The body of work and winning a Super Bowl, that buys you a lot of time. But he won a Super Bowl in his second season as head coach. He took over in 2007. He won a Super Bowl a year later. They went to the AFC title game 2 years after that. But what have you done for me lately? You made the playoffs 5 times since 2016? You haven't won a game. You haven't won a game. I mean, that's just lost in a wild card. Super Bowl champs, lost in a Super Bowl, lost in wild card, lost in wild card, lost in divisional round, lost in championship, lost in division round, wild card, wild card, wild card, wild card, wild card. 8-11 in the playoffs, man. That does not reek of Canton, but he's probably going to get there. Like the regular season success, i.e. Mike McCarthy, is one thing. But you also have to win in the playoffs. You have to, again, win in the playoffs. Steelers fan Vince, good coaches are just hanging out, waiting for a job. That's the love affair. You don't just fire a Hall of Fame coach, Q, but as G-Man, I understand why you don't get that. But see, here's the thing. Who's had, if you break it down, Vince, let's be honest. When did you win your Super Bowl? I mean, Giants have the most recent Super Bowl win. I'm just saying, it's apples and oranges. That's the lazy take right there. I know how bad the Giants are. I know, but the Giants also won a playoff game 2 years ago. Pittsburgh, when you win a playoff game there, my friend, you don't have a quarterback under contract. Like, you guys will defend some of these. Marvin Lewis, perfect example. How the hell did Marvin Lewis hang in the NFL for so long when he had 3 winning records, 3 winning seasons in 15 years? I get it. You're a defender of your team. I wanted my head coach and GM out. I made no bones about it. I wanted them again. It's not here. And here's the thing. It's not an obsession with trying to fire a coach, right? It's sports talk, man. This is what we do. Go listen to Pittsburgh radio. You don't think they're killing Tomlin right now? You don't think they're killing the fact that they were going to have all these plays installed? You're going to tell me that McCarthy, I'm not allowed to talk about McCarthy friggin' either, right? Are you kidding me? Come on, stop. And no, this whole nonsense where every team in the NFL, the Giants would not hire Tomlin. I can tell you that right now. They would not hire Tomlin. I'm not saying he's a bad head coach. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is this. If you're a Steelers fan, as some of you guys are, and you look at the body of work and this whole argument, you can't fire a guy just to fire him. Well, okay. In the regular season over the last several years, who's had more success? Mike McCarthy or Mike Tomlin? And Mike McCarthy is now out. And Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl. And again, you guys want to sit there and say the alternative. How do we know? because we're so used to what we've already been through, but we're not used to trying something different. It's one of the reasons I wanted Daboll and Shane out. I have no problem going after an Aaron Glenn, going after a Ben Johnson. But when you're stuck, when you are stuck to one guy for so long, and yes, I'm sure teams would take a flyer on Tomlin. I'm sure teams would want to have a discussion, have a conversation, bring him in to interview. No one is saying on the air that Mike Tomlin is a bad head coach. All I'm saying is over the last several years, over the last decade since they won a Super Bowl, there hasn't been much winning in the playoffs. And aren't you measured by that? Christ, Bill Belichick, how many Super Bowls did he win? And he still got fired. It's apples and oranges, some of the argument you guys are trying to make with me. It's not about what the Jets would do or the Giants would do. I already, it's a lazy take coming at me with the Giants. I already know they're horribly poorly run franchise. I rip them as much as possible. I constantly kill these guys, and I get ex-players that text me and say, back off the Giants for a little bit. I mean, you got to call it the way you see it. They're a poorly run franchise. Their head coach, Brian Daboll, you cannot justify having him come back as the Giants head football coach. You can't. Agree 100%, but it's not about the Giants. I'm talking about right now, what's transpired in the playoffs. If McDermott would have lost, I would have made the case that McDermott needs to get fired because he cannot get past a certain hump, right? Yeah, you're allowed to be a great coach and get fired. You're allowed to be a very good coach. You guys are just too sensitive. That's all it is. You're too sensitive. You're allowed to sit there again. You're mixing and matching what I'm saying. You can be a good head coach and your shelf life has run out. I'm sorry. Mike Tomlin's shelf life in Pittsburgh has run out. And next year, if they go 12-5 and win a playoff game, then you know what? I'll shut up for a year. But if they go 9-8 and get bounced again, are you still going to keep wanting to go back to that? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. He goes with Fields and he flip-flops back to Wilson. Then they struggle. They lost 4 out of the last 5 straight. What was the losing record? What was their streak? They lost how many games to close out the season? 5, including the playoff game. 7 of their 9. Not a lot of coaches survive that. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not even trying to reiterate what everyone else is saying. It's just my thought and opinion, but it's also the reality of the NFL. I've seen guys win head coach of the year, and then a year or two later, they got fired. You tell me you can't fire a guy that won a Super Bowl? Come on. You guys are just uberly sensitive. And it has nothing to do with what other teams would do. There also are coordinators out there that are probably going to have some good careers as head coach. Look, Mike McCarthy. Okay, let's talk about Mike McCarthy for a moment. You look at Mike McCarthy and you look at his record. I think it was like 563. Mike McCarthy won what? 49, 50 games with the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy also won a Super Bowl. Mike McCarthy's shelf life, it ran out in Green Bay. We know that. You know it. And I know it. Okay, fine. So the contract talks break down. And it's so funny because Jerry Jones pretty much blocked him from having an interview with the Bears and then fires him 2 or 3 days later, which is kind of Bush League, but whatever. We get it. Okay, fine. They made the playoffs 2021, 2022, 2023. They have one postseason victory to show for, and that was when they got drubbed by Tampa Bay. They were 12-5 in each of their 3 seasons. They had a horrible 2024. They finished 7-10. He's out of a job. This is a head coach who went 12-5, 1, 2, 3 seasons, winning football, making the playoffs. He also won a Super Bowl. He's out of a job. So this whole nonsense that, he's a great coach, but he can't be fired. Get the frig out of here. It's an asinine counter argument. It really is. Because every time these guys get fired, you know what the GM says or the owner says? Well, he was a really good head coach and we know he's going to be successful in the NFL and we wish him all the best of luck. But yet you got fired. Come on. Coughlin won 2 Super Bowls. They forced him out the door. You're going to tell me he didn't deserve to hang around for a couple more years? I mean, Coughlin's going to the Hall of Fame. He's got 2 rings to show for. Tomlin won a friggin' ring his second year, and he's done dick since. Sorry. Sorry. It's just the reality of it. That's the reality of it. Eventually, you have to turn around and you have to say it's not working. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All this talk about we're going to implement Justin Fields in the offense during the playoffs. You saw him for 2 plays, man. Come on. Just stop. And they're having the same conversation in Tampa right now. The same conversation about Bowles. The same conversation about Todd Bowles. Clock management. Constant. You heard him during the press conference. You heard him during these interviews at halftime. You didn't know which way was left. The same thing. It's not ripping on these guys. It's nothing personal. It's just the facts. Eventually, you've been around for 15, 16, 17 years. Sometimes you need a change of scenery. I do think we should look at coach's complete resume of work during their tenure, but a coach shouldn't be penalized for other situations that are out of their control. In what regard? In what regard? Coaches coach. Coaches also make the decision. Do they not? Coach also has their hand when it comes into the draft. Coaches have their fingerprint and their pulse on the team. They do. They just do. I think that you're making good points. There are instances where situations, let me see pull the rest of this comment up. Hold on. I'm sorry about that, auto racing. I want to get the whole comment. Situations are out of coach's control, like injuries, like the Bucs. I'm not the biggest fan of Bowles, but the team got back. Yeah, but hey, man, nobody wants to hear injuries. Nobody wants to deal with injuries. They don't. And listen, for a franchise like Pittsburgh that's had 3 head coaches, I get it. You love the stability. You love the stability. You always do. But I'm not going to sit here and Baltimore's had a bunch of injuries, right? I mean, I've for years, all I heard was, why do the Giants have so many injuries? What's going on with the Giants? Are these guys not being conditioned? Are they not training hard enough? Are they training too hard? Why is this? Why is that? Why is this? Why is this? What's going on with their staff, right? I heard a lot of that. What's going on with their staff? And, again, coaching injuries, they're a part of the game. McCarthy's ring in Green Bay was a sham as well. A-Rod was playing out of his mind back then. Yeah, but you're still part of it, right? You're still part of it. Does that take away? Okay, so the one ring that, the first ring that Roethlisberger won, are we going to take it away from him even though he played horrible? Are we taking it away from Cowher? I mean, I think that's disingenuous. If you win a Super Bowl, like Tomlin, like McCarthy, all the ones with Belichick, like Coughlin, Andy Reid, you have to give credit. You have to. Coaches need to have input. Bench and stands are his best friends. Yeah, because again, that's what everyone believes that. Look, coaching in the NFL is hard, man. And I respect what these guys do. And it's a grind. It's a grind. You're basically living in an office. You're making a lot of money. You have a lot of responsibility. And it can wear on you. And there's 32 of these jobs. 32 of these jobs. So yes, if you boil it down, if you narrow it down, how many really good head coaches right now are in the NFL? How many would you say, you know what, that guy's a really good head coach? I'm not asking you to rank them. I'm just asking you right now, how many are really good head coaches? You guys ponder it as we get set to hit 5 o'clock. We'll come back. We'll talk about it a little more on the other side. Get in on the conversation. 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved. You can hook up with me on X as well, at RichQ on Q. And I want to hear from you guys. Like I said, how many great head coaches are in the NFL as it stands at this moment? Let me get your thoughts.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, fast approaching the 5 o'clock hour. Sergeant Delaware chimes in. Q, believe it or not, I actually agree with you on this one. I think every coach has their shelf life. I think the shelf life is done for Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin. Change of course, change of pace, change of scenery. Yeah, listen, and would he get a job tomorrow? Sure. But that doesn't mean he's the right fit anymore in Pittsburgh. Mike McCarthy. Is Mike McCarthy going to get a job? Probably. Mike McCarthy will probably get another head coaching job, no doubt. But isn't it kind of what we talked about a week or so ago with like these retreads in the NFL? So I asked you guys this before we hit the break. How many would you say in the NFL right now are really great head coaches? Great. I'm not talking about college. I'm talking about the NFL. I'm talking about the NFL right now. 3? 2? Is Dan Campbell a great head coach, or is Dan Campbell still learning his craft? And he also has very good talent, right? Because the GM did a hell of a job. He's got a very good offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, a hell of a defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn. Is Andy Reid still a great head coach, or is it right now, I just let you guys do what you need to do? I got a great staff around me, coordinator, defensive coordinator, Hall of Fame tight end, Hall of Fame quarterback, right? Players make the coach makes the players. Sean McVay, everyone's still talking about Sean McVay. It seems like he's been in the league for 20-something odd years. Is he a great head coach? Is Tomlin a great head coach? Is Sirianni a great head coach? McDermott a great head coach? Harbaugh a great head coach? Is Sean Payton a great head coach? Why? Because Payton had success years ago? 2 or 3 really great head coaches, 3 or 4 very good head coaches, and then we scratch our head every week. Every single solitary week, we are scratching our head when it comes to some of these decisions, right? That's just how it is. Coaches, when you overcome adversities, like case in point, quarterback goes down. Got to go on the road for a bunch of playoff games. You got to make a run. It's a long season. Maybe you've lost a couple. Then you picked it back up. It's all part of the lure of being a great head coach in the NFL, overcoming that adversity. having to go on the road, hostile environment, keeping your teams together. Every time there's a losing streak with any team, what do we say? What does the media say? What are us talking heads? What us in the media? We always have this conversation. They've lost the locker room. They're not playing for the head coach. His message is falling on deaf ears. They've quit. They've quit. Andy Reid was a really good head coach when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. People fail to realize he was a really good head coach. You get to 4 straight NFC championship games, and I don't care if the NFC was watered down, you're doing something right. But in all those losses before they finally got over the hump, a lot of the blame was on Andy Reid because the Carolina game, McNabb gets banged up. You're throwing way too much. Ricky Manning Jr. has 3 picks. John Runyon goes in the locker room at the half and says, run the effing football. They don't run it. The Rams game, the clock management. The Super Bowl, the clock management. The timeouts, the lack of timeouts. The bad awareness. Right? He learned as he matured as a head coach. And now look. I mean, he's roller skating into the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's a fantastic run. It's a fantastic run, but even his run will come to an end. Even his shelf life will end. Eventually, Kansas City will have a couple of down years, and they will say, time to get rid of Andy Reid. That's just the nature of the NFL, man. It happened. Tom Landry, Super Bowl winning head coach, the silhouette, the hat, roaming the sidelines with the Cowboys. But eventually, you run into hard times. The NFL changes. Free agency, contracts, trades, expansion, watered down product. You can't keep up with the Joneses anymore. They get rid of you. Or you get burned out. Vermeil, Parcells, flip-flopping, wavering. But still winning championships. It's a hard racket. It is to be an NFL head coach. But I also believe sometimes if you're content, I believe, and I'll use this like the NBA. I think there are some teams in the NFL right now, and you guys are probably going to disagree with me, and that's fine. I think there are some teams in the NFL that I equated to you're stuck in NBA purgatory, meaning you're a 7th or 8th seed. You might get out of the first round, but you're not going to go any further. You're not. And I look at a team like the Steelers as one of those teams. I really do. I look at Seattle, one of those teams. Like, you're going to have to make some hard decisions. And for Pittsburgh, you don't have a quarterback under contract. Sometimes you're at a team that's just, you're stuck in purgatory. You don't know what to do. And typically that's when you make the decision. It ain't working for us. We have to change course. And that's all I'm saying. The shelf life of head coaches, it runs out again. It runs out eventually. That's all. You can be a great head coach. And sometimes you just, you run out of time, man. That's it. And the franchise is looking for a different direction. That's all. Jay chimes in, who does a really good show really good show that he does as well. But I appreciate that. Jay, and no worries, brother. We'll see you at 6. Always good to hear from you. Let's see. Harbaugh is an interesting case. Harbaugh comes with the pedigree, right? Harbaugh comes with the pedigree. McVay has a smart football IQ. Andy Reid has to be a great head coach. Has a winning record every year. John Harbaugh, same thing. Even Harbaugh can be in a similar situation as Tomlin. Eventually, Harbaugh hasn't done much. You're right, since Super Bowl win. And Baltimore's going to have that conversation. Yes, they are going to have that conversation. Eventually, you got to win. Coaches are measured by what? Wins and losses and championships. They're measured by wins and losses. That's it. Let me see. What do we got here? All right, here we go. Vince, Tomlin, surprise. Reid, Harbaugh times 2. Campbell, Shanahan, People would argue that with Shanahan, right? Campbell's a culture changes. But you need that. You need that in the NFL. Quinn, is a guy that came in, and what did he do? He changed the culture. And yes, I love that take, by the way, on Campbell. I love it because I think, like Mike Grable with the V, that the Pats just hired. You already know what you're getting. You're getting no nonsense. He's not going to deal with the BS. You better tighten it up. You better run a tight ship. You better come up. You better ball out. You better sell out. You better play. He's not going to have any time for the nonsense of the media. So Patriots fans, they're giddy, man. They're absolutely giddy because they believe now they've right the ship. Like Kraft made a bad hire in Mayo. We all know it was a disaster. You move along and you go with something you're familiar with, right? Now, he didn't have the greatest success with the Titans, but they were a solid team. But he's bringing that hire was a Patriot hire, right? The Patriot way, which, oh, by the way, which leads me to this, and I don't want to get too far along the rabbit hole. I really don't. But what's the point of having the Rooney Rule if we're not going to adhere to it? It's almost like a wink, wink. You already knew they were going to make that hire. You already knew they were going to make that hire. But Ben Johnson's, Aaron Glev's, the Pep Hamiltons. You know, I told you, if the Jets win the Jets, you have Aaron Glenn in that building. Don't hire Rex Ryan. Don't. Do not allow Aaron Glenn to leave the building. Don't do it. 5 o'clock straight up on a Man Up Monday, or some of you guys have liked to say Manolo Monday edition of the Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game Studios, part of Coastal Sports Network. A lot of NFL to touch. I got a lot of Bucks fans that are not too happy with some of my Baker comments. Did I rub you guys the wrong way? I think I've been very fair with Baker Mayfield, but I think our listening audience is pretty astute. I think you guys knew eventually you were going to get bad Baker last night. You were going to get a moment where there was going to be bad Baker. That's a bad loss. By the way, I do have sound. I'll get you, Jerry Jones talking about firing Mike McCarthy. Now, here's a scenario. See if you guys want to go down this rabbit hole with me. Jerry Jones fired Mike McCarthy. Ray Ball's hired. Aaron Glenn's out there. Ben Johnson's out there. Belichick's with Carolina, we believe, right? Wink, wink. Brady was floating the idea. Raiders, Belichick, the hoodie, reunite. Now, what? And the Raiders came out and they said they have zero interest in Deion Sanders. Now, let's play the game. And I know it's a very dangerous, dicey game. Does anyone believe that Jerry Jones right now, or when he goes back and he has his little cocktail later on this evening and he's watching, what is it? Landman or whatever the hell that show is. You think he's thinking to himself, I'm going to open up the friggin' checkbook and I'm going to bring in Deion. I'm going to make a splash. I want to make a splash, right? And I want to hire Deion. Brian Flores is an interesting animal. That's not a bad name. Here's the problem with Flores. I think wait and see what happens in the playoffs. I think there are some teams that are going to be a little gun shy of Brian Flores because of the lawsuit. I think Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator. Maybe there's something to be said. He's rubbing players the wrong way. I defended Flores because I think I told you guys, I mentioned this last week. I didn't like the comments that came out of Fitzpatrick's mouth, kind of like sabotaging a little bit prior to, Reed is going to retire before the Chiefs get rid of him. They're not going to get rid of Andy Reid. No, he most likely would retire. But again, there's no guarantees in life, my friend. Like I said, no one thought that Belichick was ever going to get fired from the Patriots. And he got fired. Let's just call it the way it is. No one thought Landry would ever get fired by the Dallas Cowboys. He got fired. Bill Walsh retired after they won that Super Bowl in 88. And then Seifert came along and they won it in 89. And then, of course, we know what happens. The Giants beat them in 90 at Candlestick. There will be no three-peat. But Bill Walsh, I'm not going to tell you Bill Walsh saw the handwriting on the wall because that team was a dynasty. And sometimes these coaches, they'll step away. What do? They'll go to the college ranks. Sometimes they coach in college, and the first time in the pros, it doesn't work out. Pete Carroll. And then you come back. Think about it. New England is now, boom, and he's had success. He had great success with the Seattle Seahawks. And you're talking about one play on the slant. They would have won 2 Super Bowls. Walsh was the architect, right? Walsh, the West Coast offense. Walsh won 3 Super Bowls. They were a dominant team. I think out of all those years, 82 strike season, right? But 83, they won 10 games. 84, you can make a case it's one of the greatest teams ever. They were 15-1. I mean, that team was they absolutely just annihilated the Miami Dolphins in that Super Bowl, 38-16. Then he won 10 games, which is a down year. 10 games, which is a down year. Montana banged up, injured. They came back. 87 strike season. Then they come back 88. Vintage prime Montana. Here we go. And then Seifert comes in 89. But that was a dynasty. I mean, he was, you're talking about a guy that won 3 Super Bowls in the span of what? 9 years? Andy Reid is on the cusp. Andy Reid can win back to back to back. And maybe, to your point, after that, Andy Reid says, I'm done. I think it's going to be very hard for the Kansas City Chiefs to not only get back to the Super Bowl winning again. It's just so hard, man. It is just so hard. And that's what makes Andy Reid a great coach. Look, the consistency of some of these guys, yes, to be fair, I would love to be a team that's constantly in the playoffs. But I also am realistic enough to know if this guy's not getting it done, sometimes you got to change course. Sometimes you got to veer to the left. Sometimes you got to veer to the right. You got to go in a different direction. But I'm also not a fan of also retreading, the retreading of some of these head coaches. Dan Quinn, like Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn cut his teeth, right? Dan Quinn, had to have some growing pains. And now he is a culture changer. I mean, think about it. He's a guy that goes to a franchise that has been downtrodden, that had to deal with all the lawsuits and harassment and this and that with Snyder and selling the team and new ownership group coming in and not figuring out. And Rivera, that was a debacle. Eric Bieniemy, that was a debacle. Losing 8 straight, no quarterback. You make the right draft pick and away you go. They got rid of 2 of their best defensive players, and I don't hear anyone talking about it last year. So now you come in and you bring in Quinn and you change the whole dynamic. You're talking about a franchise that has been a laughing stock for how long? And he's, my buddy brought this up and he's right. He's 100%. And I argue this point with him all the time, but he is 100% correct. You can turn it around in a year or 2 in the NFL. You can turn around and maybe they get their doors blown off against Detroit. But you know what he did? He set the tone. He set the tone for the franchise. Dan Campbell has set the tone for the Lions. That's what these guys are doing. They're setting the tone. They're cleaning out the toxicity, how nasty and just the losing. We're not going to lose anymore. We're done playing losing football. Mike in Ohio chimes in. Q, I think you're a little critical of Baker Mayfield. Did put up some monster numbers. You also mentioned his toughness. He had 1 gaffe last night. Still a hell of a quarterback. He is. Mayfield is a very good quarterback, but Baker's going to Baker. And I have a ton of respect for Baker Mayfield because he took all the bullets last night, man. He took all the bullets. It would have been interesting to see Tampa Bay moving on because that team is somewhat of an enigma. You can't figure them out at times. But unfortunately, the knock is he's going to turn the football over. Look, Herbert did not play particularly well. I mean, he had a horrible game. Harbaugh comes in, changes the culture. Now, at least we got to the playoffs. Sean Payton comes in, right quarterback they drafted in Bo Nix. It was pretty evident Russell Wilson wasn't his guy. Payton has won before, changes the culture. It does not take 4, 5, 6 years to do it, even though sometimes I think it does, or it feels that way, especially being a Giants fan and going through, McAdoo, Shermer, Judge, and now Brian Daboll. And you thought after winning a playoff game, hey, the winning's back. That's not the case. I think Washington has lasting power. I do. Staying power. I think Daniels is a phenomenal quarterback. He really is. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. I mean, it's just, and the kid, he doesn't flinch. He just does not flinch, right? Fitz is a tool. Yeah, talking about the comments. Yeah, Marino hadn't learned the hand motion. No. 85 Marino. I don't know. 85 Marino. No. 90 Marino. 90 Marino was. Got to run the route that way. Kind of like the scene in Goodfellas. I got some nice coats. Maybe I'll get them from my mom. Over there. Jerry Jones doesn't care about winning. He cares about selling merch and expanding the brand. He's got enough money. He's got more money than like 10 gods. I don't think Jerry Jones is just at the point where it's the ego. It's the ego with Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones will probably try to make a splash. Jerry Jones is probably already on the phone with Deion Sanders saying, hey, man, what's it going to do? What's going to take to get you? What's going to do? What's going to take to get you? Monday Marcus chiming in. Q, you got to give credit to where credit is due. You were all on Josh Allen, but who played better this weekend? Was it Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? Well, hold on a second, Marcus. I know you're a Ravens fan. Monday Marcus chiming in on a Man Up Monday. Did you see the throw that Allen made on 4th down? It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It was utterly, name another quarterback that can place the ball like that. Josh Allen is phenomenal, man. And let me add this for the divisional round. Texans and the Chiefs. Chiefs are already laying 7.5. Commanders and the Lions. By the way, the line open. Detroit is laying 9. The Ravens and the Bills. Baltimore is a 1-point favorite on the road. I'm not even going to make... This is not Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. That game Sunday at 6:30. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Just sit back and watch 2 quarterbacks playing the position at the highest level. Just sit back. This is not Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. This is not, waiting for one of them to fail. Just sit back and watch. Sit back and watch what these two guys are doing. Up and down the field, slinging it, scrambling, running, making plays. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it thoroughly because it's very rare that at this stage of the game, when you're talking about quarterbacks who have been in the NFL for a while now, and they've been, they're young, but by NFL standards, they're veteran quarterbacks, but they're in their prime. It's like watching back in the day, Magic and Bird. Just sit back and watch it. Just enjoy it. Jordan going against Isaiah, just sit back, or Jordan and Bird, whatever. Kobe and whomever. LeBron and Steph back in the day. Like, this is not, if Josh Allen plays poorly, it doesn't take away from Josh Allen's season. If Lamar Jackson plays poorly, it doesn't take away from his season. Now, I mentioned on Friday's show, the playoffs for Lamar Jackson, you had to exercise the demons, and that's a hell of a start. That was a hell of a start against the Pittsburgh Steelers because you got to get that win. You have to change the narrative. You have to change the narrative, and only you can change your own story, your own narrative of your life. Lamar Jackson, everyone's dogging him because of his playoff failures. And I went back and I broke down a lot of stats. I really did when I was looking at Lamar Jackson. And I text my buddies this because it was eye popping. You almost like do a double take when you sit there and say, "Oh my God, this guy had how many touchdowns total? 45, and he only had 4 picks." And he ran for almost 1,000 yards. Like, I'm still going to stand on the mountain and say this year it's Josh Allen, but how the hell can you can argue Lamar. They've had fantastic seasons. Fantastic seasons. To me, I would have loved to have saw this as a AFC championship game. And yes, the game's going to be fun. It's going to be a great game to watch. You've got, and then it's Baltimore versus Buffalo. It's not Lamar versus Josh Allen, right? It's not Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, but this is how they're going to sell it to you. This game doesn't need to be sold. I'm in. And I'm very curious to see what Jaden Daniels can do again on the road, hostile environment as a young quarterback, because if you're Detroit at first glance, you know what you took away from last night's game? Washington just does not quit. They don't get rattled. And that's scary. When you're a young team and you don't know any better and you just keep coming at you, that's scary. So Detroit's going to put their best foot forward. And then as far as that Minnesota and Rams this evening, and I know you guys are not, you're not going to go down this road with me, but I'll make the comment anyway. I think tonight Sam Darnold has a chance to earn about $130 million. And if you guys have listened to me, and I know we got some first-time listeners and guys that commented, and I greatly appreciate you tuning in for the first time. I'm all on slinging Sammy Darnold. Let him sizzle. Let him sling it tonight. I'm all on it. I think this is a goofy spot for a game, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the winner, you're talking short week. If it's Minnesota, right? The Rams, tough environment in Philly. But also the Rams having to deal with, in the back of their mind, they got to be thinking, what the hell's going on in Los Angeles, in California with all these wildfires and their family and their friends and their loved ones and their houses and their livelihood. And I think that might weigh on them a little bit. I don't know how much of a distraction, hopefully when kickoff comes, but if they win, man, I do not like them next week because, again, they're creatures of habit. And now your whole routine has been disrupted. Minnesota, you win, you fly back to Minneapolis, you wait a couple of days and you get back on a charter and you fly out to Philly. And it's a Sunday game. So you fly out, Friday, do the walkthrough Saturday, and you're good to go on Sunday. But I think Sam Darnold, we talk about changing the perception, changing the narrative. If Sam Darnold goes out tonight, 20 of 28 for 288 and 3 touchdowns, and Minnesota wins, you can really now start to make the argument that Sam Darnold he's legit. He's a legit franchise quarterback in the NFL. And it took him a while to get a little more acclimated, right? Because Sam Darnold, young quarterback, immature quarterback. Remember, he burst on the scene in that game against Detroit on Monday night, running to his right and throwing across his body. So people looked at Darnold, he's arrived. But then the injuries, the mono, the inconsistent play, the seeing the ghosts, the hearing the footsteps, to not being able to read defenses. And then he struggled. And then, the Jets, they gave up on Sam Darnold. Now, boom, here we go. You're going to go somewhere else. Give up on him. Panthers, Panthers, by the way, they had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield on the same roster. Go figure. And then the 49ers, and he backed up Purdy, and, 49ers wanted to re-sign him. But then he comes to Minnesota. They draft McCarthy. That's going to be the franchise quarterback. The kid goes down early in the preseason. Darnold comes in, and he has not looked back. And I hope the Cinderella story doesn't end for Sam Darnold tonight. I just don't. I really don't. I'm cheering for him. I'm rooting for him. I really am. Because I think the kid's got, he's gotten a raw deal. in the NFL. And sometimes it happens with some of these guys. You're drafted, you go to the, you go to a bad spot, a bad team. We were killing Panthers and Bryce Young. Now all of a sudden Bryce Young's game's starting to slow down. Richardson's still a question mark in Indianapolis. You go listen to what they're saying in Chicago. They think they got the wrong quarterback. Right? So 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved on a Monday edition of the Drive with Q. Rams get a gritty, emotional win. Had to fly across country and get that L. So in one breath, you're saying, hey, go out there and get that gritty win, right? Do it for LA, right? Do it for California. And then you got to go out and you got to meet the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, that's I don't envy that position. I really don't. That's a tough spot to be in. We had Patriots in postseason for so long. It's still very different just watching, hoping for good games. I don't know why are you guys, and I'll get to that point in a second. Why is everyone on the Rams tonight? Is it more because you think it's going to be an emotional lift or because you're not a believer in Sam Darnold? See, you guys are waiting for Minnesota to lose. You are waiting for Sam Darnold to struggle tonight because then tomorrow you guys are going to blast me. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I really hope Darnold plays well. I do. And I think tonight they have to figure out a way to run the football early and often. Then I think they will open it up and they will let him throw it. And it's always going to be the first couple series in playoff games. I mean, look what happened yesterday in the Eagles game. The opening kickoff of a wild card game, and the Packers muffed the punt, even though, sorry, Eagles fans, if you go back and you watch, come on. Packers should have retained possession. But point being, it set the whole stage. It set the whole stage, the whole complexion of the game changed, right? It's like a gut punch, even though the Eagles could not blow them out of the building. They just couldn't. So tonight, same thing, man. The first couple series, I want to see exactly what Minnesota does. I really do. And look, these teams are not thinking of who they're going to play. They're not. They're thinking about tonight. And you've got two very good head coaches. You have two very good quarterbacks. I mean, Stafford's a veteran. He's been around. He's won. He's slung it. We know about that. I think they survived a pretty weak NFC West, but then they had that strong finish. But again, you beat the Cardinals, you beat the 49ers, the Jets, and the Saints, non-playoff teams. The defense carried them in those games. And that competition's not going to be as close to what they're going to see tonight in Minnesota. I mean, if the Rams' best game was that Bills game, the 44-42 game that they won in that wild game in which McDermott decided quarterback sneak late and you had to burn the timeouts. And Cooper Kupp has disappeared, man. He has disappeared. I mean, offensively, you guys believe the Rams are going to be able to run against Minnesota? Are the Rams going to be able to score 24-28 tonight? Because I believe that's what it'll take to win the game. I just think Minnesota's offense, you guys want to call it recency bias, that's fine. But my gut, even before I read some of these comments, you guys are not a believer in Darnold. And maybe I'm too high on Sam Darnold, right? Maybe that's it. I followed Sam Darnold throughout the course of his career, and I watched him closely this year. I mean, that first game against the Giants, I mean, he just got into a rhythm fast. He got into a rhythm very fast. And I don't know how much of the game being relocated has any bearing on the game. I think it hurts the Rams a little more. Like I said, you're just displaced, man. You're just displaced. Both teams have to go through their routine, right? And they don't want their routine to be disrupted. They don't. And the game's being played in Arizona because of the ongoing wildfires in Los Angeles County. So, you got to deal with it and you have to overcome it. But offensively, are the Rams going to be able to shut down Minnesota's offense? I mean, if Darnold has time back there in the pocket, he's going to be able to distribute the football. And they've got weapons. Minnesota can move the football. They have weapons, man. You're talking about a very good running back in Aaron Jones. You know, if they wanted to, Darnold can run a little bit with his legs. You got Addison. You got Jefferson. You solid tight end. Good offensive line. They got to keep Darnold upright. I think that's going to be the key tonight. If they can have a clean pocket for Sam Darnold, he should be able to open it up a little bit, right? So I'm leaning towards Minnesota in this spot. I really am. I'm leaning towards Minnesota. Rams as well, says the man. McVay is a better coach in big games. Rams are young and they don't know any better. Yeah, but see, I could have made that case with Denver, right? Young, they don't know any better. They scored early, and then, what was it? Buffalo ripped all, 38? Michael C. chimes in. See what he has to say. Let me pull up the comment. Bear with me for a second, Michael. I think some of it's recency bias because people... Oh, no, hold on. Let me get to the other comment. Yeah, what do we got here? Me trying to work through these comments because they're coming in very fast. Yes, I think some of its recency bias because people saw Minnesota play so poorly against Detroit, but they had a great season. It's a fair point. Their offense didn't do anything against Detroit, and Darnold struggled. He did. A lot of people that don't watch, I got to figure out a way to stay on these comments, and I apologize. A lot of people that don't watch Vikings games probably only saw Minnesota-Detroit game. Yeah, I watched a good enough games this year. They're a good team, man, and they're really a good head coach. Oh, Trevor, stop. Refs don't get overhead view to review the Eagles ball. Stop it. Let's just go away already today with the friggin' bunker boy crap and the friggin' Eagles. My God. Unbelievable. I don't want to hear that nonsense. Eagles fans, I don't want to hear you guys again complain about the referees or the officiating. The ball sitting right in the Packers' mitts, right in his tummy. That's a gut punch, man. Imagine starting a game off like that. Well, remember when Ron Dixon took the opening kickoff back for a touchdown divisional game against the Eagles? Giants and Eagles, 2000. It's a gut punch. It is a gut punch. Maddie chimes in from North Castle. What does he have to say here? Let me pull up his comment on X. Q, believe it or not, I am a diehard Minnesota Vikings fan. I've had a lot of playoff failures in my life. Let's not even start with the kickers or your Giants a couple years ago on the 4th and 8 when the tight end decides to run a 3-yard route. Ha, ha, ha. My gut tells me, though, this is going to be a very close game, and I think Darnold's going to have the ball last, and I'm afraid he's going to revert back to seeing ghost Sam Darnold. Wow. Where's your confidence, man? Seriously. Yes, he did not play well in the game against Detroit, and he had to throw it 41 times because they were so behind in that game. But where's your confidence? Darnold, prior to that game, only threw 2 picks over his last, 2 months of the season? If Minnesota can keep him upright, clean pocket, he's going to have an opportunity to distribute the ball. And conversely, they have to. They have to be able to cause a couple turnovers and get to Matthew Stafford. They do. And Williams is a really nice running back, absolutely, for the Rams. He's a stud. He's a stud. And he's actually, listen, he ran well last year, and he's run for close for 1,800, and he's averaging about 4.1. So, yes, to some of your guys' comments, absolutely. He's a stud, and they can open holes, but the run defense should be there. Crackle on a Monday. Not even a crackle. It's not even that. It's just everyone saw that the Packers had the football. I don't want to hear that aerial nonsense. About Sam Darnold, as Denny Green said, they are who they thought they are. How are you going to say it's a backup? I'll tell you what. Pittsburgh, you'd rather have Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, or Russell Wilson right now. Go ahead. Whose season you taking? You're taking Darnold in a heartbeat. You're taking. I don't know. Why do you guys hate Sam Darnold so much? Man, I pray. I hope he goes out and he throws for 350 and they win. And I'm gonna be thinking about you guys when he gets sacked a couple times and he has like a pick 6. You guys are gonna be just chomping. You guys are gonna be salivating, waiting for tomorrow's show so you can give it to me. Sometimes, guys, it just takes a while, and it also takes a change of scenery. And all of a sudden, boom. Oh, that's disrespectful. You're going to take Cooper Rush over Sam Darnold. That's stop. There will be no Sam Darnold slander on this show. There will not. There will not be any slander at all. Kai in South Philly chiming in. Q, loving the show. Good start to it. Your points on Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield are 1,000% correct. Not sure I agree with you on the Tomlin take. I don't think it's about a shuffle with Tomlin. I just think they don't have the roster. Yeah, see, that's where you're going to get a little pushback from me, because this is what bothers me sometimes. There was a time during the season where a lot of people thought the Steelers were frauds. Now they beat the Raiders, the Jets, the Giants, Washington. The Ravens was a nice win. Give them credit. That was a tough win. Then they lost to the Browns, and then they came back and they beat Cincinnati. They beat Cleveland again. And then the litmus test, right? I mean, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Cincinnati. Tough games. And they kind of came back down to life. There's this sentiment that, what would they have done if they never went to Russell Wilson? Because Russell Wilson did not play particularly well the last month or so. He just didn't. He had a really nice start. He came on. He had a couple really nice moments. But if you look at the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, a couple bad picks. The offensive line started to break down. That's another thing not a lot of people are talking about. He got sacked 15 times in 4 games. And he got sacked 4 times the other day. Now, again, I'll ask you guys, do you believe there was a spot in that moment where you thought that they would go to Fields? And if they did that, would it have been a move out of desperation? We're not going to know. But sometimes I look at these teams and you have to just take a step back. And I was totally wrong with the Chargers and the Texans, but I'm looking at teams. You have to hit the spot at the right time. You go into the playoffs, you have to have a little juice, a little momentum. The Chargers game, I did not see that coming. I did not think Justin Herbert would throw 4 picks. I did not think he would play that poorly. That team, was on a streak, man. They were on a run. They were on a run, and they went on the road, and they absolutely destroyed the Raiders to clinch a playoff spot. They started to get hot at the right time. Granted, tough loss against Kansas City. Yes, I know they lost to Vince's Steelers, but you started to see the defense was making some plays. They were starting to get into some rhythm. I think they won what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think 8 out of 10 to close out the season. And I falsely predicted, I thought in the beginning of the year that Justin Herbert was going to have a type of season where he was going to throw for well over 4,500 yards and 30-something touchdowns. The problem was the pocket collapsed way too many times the other day. He rushed some throws. I mean, some of his decision-making was really poor. And again, this is football 101. The more likelihood your quarterback's on his back or feeling duress or pressure, he's going to make mistakes. They were able to get to him. Like Houston, give him credit. Defensively, they got to him. They caused, 5 total turnovers in the game, 4 picks. They sacked him 4 times. They played well. Now, do I think they match up well against Kansas City? I don't. I really don't. I mean, Kansas City should win that game, and then you're going to see Kansas City and Baltimore, Kansas City and Buffalo in the AFC Championship. That's how it should be. It's like it's meant to come down to that. It really is. NFC, it's a different animal. If Minnesota wins tonight, can they go into Philly and beat the Philadelphia Eagles? Can Washington beat Detroit? Can the Rams beat Philly? Like, what's the matchup? If you're an Eagles fan, what do you prefer? What's the easier matchup? There will be no Danny Nichols slander on this show as well. None. None. Darnold is Keenan 2.0. We know how this movie ends. Oh, man. Jeez. My God. It's so negative and negative. Nobody is going to Philly and winning. Says who? Says who? Minnesota? Detroit? Well, first of all, if Philly wins, I got to go to Detroit. Now that's a different animal. Detroit's number 1 seed. Hello. Eagles go on the road to Detroit. And we know Detroit in that defense. We know they give us some plays. You know what bothered me the most about that Tampa Bay game last night? The Bucs have a really good back. Washington has a really bad run defense. And they did not take advantage of it. They didn't. And then you watch that Packers game and you got Jacobs basically running for his life, trying to will Green Bay to a win. I mean, Andrew chimed in on Facebook. Q, I saw you tweeted this out that Jordan Love had some difficulty and he played a poor game. I'll make it pretty easy for you. I'll keep it simple and stupid. He sucks. Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and say Jordan Love's a horrible quarterback. He did not play particularly well yesterday. He really didn't. I mean, Jacobs, what the hell the Raiders thinking letting him go? But Jordan Love did not play well. He missed some throws. And I thought, if anything, he was going to have to make some plays with his legs. I mean, he had 3 picks and he got sacked twice. And he had to throw the ball 33 times in a low-scoring game. And yeah, the Eagles dominated that game, but it didn't. That game felt like it was a 35-10 game, but yet Green Bay hung around. They hung around. That's a 16-3 game, still relatively close. Going into the fourth quarter. And Barkley would have had his buck 65. That's a 16-10 game after Green Bay scored. And then the Eagles got the ball back. They kicked a field goal, and then Green Bay turned the ball down. Eagles had another field goal, 22-10 is a difference, and then you get the pick. It was a sloppy game. And the Eagles fan will admit this. They will admit this right now. Eagles play like that offensively against Minnesota or the Lions. They're not winning the game. They're not. And if you want to say contribute to Russ, Jalen Hurts, that's fine. No one is going to Philly and winning. Yes, I'm talking about next week. Okay, just I had to get some clarity. We need clarity. We need transparency and clarity. The TC, we need it on the show all the time. 540. We'll take a quick time out. We'll come back. We'll get into a little more of tonight's game. Got a couple more thoughts on McCarthy out in Dallas and a couple of names I want to drop for you as well. Get in on the conversation. 727-858-6650. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up right here on a Manolo, a Man Up Monday or Man Up Lunes Monday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. My man, Angel Martinez, driving around enjoying a much-deserved day off, and he'll be back in the saddle with me later on this week. Don't forget, we will be back in the saddle tomorrow as well. Yes, video component, I promise you, and I promise you we will start on time. You guys have to have a touch of patience, just a touch. A couple of you guys wanted to know where the eye on TB guy went. I don't know, but we'll find out. Maybe he's in this commercial spot. All right, we'll take you up to 6.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
All right. About 20 to play with. They give 6. Buck fans, where are you?
Don't forget to get
oh
social
my God,
with
this
us.
is friggin'
Follow
music.
Q.
You know what? Where's this angel when you need him? Where are the Bucks fans? Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? What is this? Q doesn't want to talk about the roster flaws in Pittsburgh. He just wants the coach fired. I'm not saying fire him. I'm just saying every coach has a shelf life. You know, you guys were not getting on Pittsburgh when they were winning, talking about their roster. Now all of a sudden they don't have a roster, right? Now all of a sudden Pittsburgh doesn't. It's not my fault you sign guys to 1-year contracts. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Najee Harris. By the way, can Pittsburgh fans admit one thing? Pickens is a friggin' dog. He is a dog. Get this guy off your friggin' team. What a jackass he is. Your Commanders can upset Detroit. That is what they're saying in the DMV. Trevor, with his ear to the frequency of the DMV. Westbrook and those guys must be, or Mitchell, pardon me, must be going giddy. Right? Maybe. Take Radio Loco Lunes. No. We will not be calling that. We are not changing the name of days, and we're not changing the name of the show. We're not doing that. We're not going to Radio Loca. You remember when La Mega would do those commercials, like with, Mike Piazza, the auto group? Punto, Mike Piazza. No, we're not going to Radio Loco Lunes. My concern for the Eagles is that they didn't convert defensive turnovers into points. Hurts looked confused on some plays, hopefully just rust. Yeah, I think offensively both teams were bad. Green Bay was bad. Eagles were bad. I was a little surprised they didn't run Saquon more. We know about the second half and Saquon's numbers, but and some guys are asking me again, the rust factor, and they got to a point in that game where they maybe weren't going to show a lot. Like Denver has the fake punt, but they can't score. Like you're not going to use that anymore going forward if they would have won the game. You're just not. Green Bay did not play well. That game was, listen, you fumble the opening kickoff and you blink, it's 7-0. Then you punt. Green Bay, their first, if you count the opening kickoff, ready? Fumble, punt, interception. And the Eagles could not even blow them out. Then they had to miss field goal. At 10-0, they had to miss field goal after the Eagles punted. Then they got to pick again. That was Green Bay's offense in the first half. I'm sorry, in the first half. Fumble on the opening kickoff, 7-0 Philly. Punt, interception, missed field goal, interception. That was as brutal as a first half as that you'll ever see from a professional football team on the road in a playoff game. But the Eagles never could distance themselves. I mean, they should have went into the locker room 21-0. Easily 21-0. And you thought maybe they were going to run Saquon a lot more than they did, early on in the game. Granted, second half, picked up the touches and the carries, finished with a $119. And Jacobs ran hard, man, but they just couldn't muster any offense. Reed had a couple big catches. He got hurt. The kid Wicks had a couple big catches. They just couldn't rely on anyone else, Green Bay. And when you're down 10-0, 13-0 like that against the Eagles and they can pin their ears back, they weren't going to win that game. I think it was more of rust. But I also think, once they knew that Green Bay wasn't going to really do anything offensively, even offensively, they went a little conservative, the Eagles. They went a little conservative, right? So I think you'll get a better showing by Philadelphia next week. I mean, I think they made the point on the telecast. You hate to see Jalen Hurts with some of these RPOs getting hit like that, but I'm not making excuses for Green Bay. You have injuries. It happens in the NFL. You have to overcome it. But they couldn't punch it in. They just couldn't. And Jordan Love, some of his decision-making was piss poor last night. And then, you guys commented early on in the show. Technique, tackling. Goddard basically stiff-arming this kid 40-something yards down the field. Make the tackle. Clean up the play. They couldn't do any of that. Special teams across the board this year in the playoffs, these kickers get paid to do one job. One job. And that's to what? Kick it through the uprights. Right? It's funny. So the kid Nixon from Green Bay does not want to return kickoffs anymore. That's the kid that fumbled. You saw it last night. Zane Gonzalez in Washington. Kickers get paid to do one thing. Kick it through the uprights. And I'm watching him. And I know people were killing him on social media when he kept playing with his hair. The kid's got OCD. Let's back up a little bit. But anyway, it was crazy because I thought as he's doing that, I'm like, is he nervous? Maybe he does. All right, we know he's got OCD, but is it a mental thing right now? And I thought he was going to push it because typically you want it near your hash so you can hook it. And it wasn't even straight through. Like when he swung his leg and it starts to drift, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And then the doink, and then it goes in. And that was just a crazy ending. Absolutely crazy ending. Obviously not a happy ending if you are a Bucs fan. That's for sure, right? It just, like I said, it just, what am I? All right, what do we got here? Got you guys getting on me. Steelers have had bad secondary for 10 years. Have lived off pass rush. They haven't had a QB in 7 years. Tomlin turns water into wine year after year. Compare him to Spoelstra. Makes guys better. Yeah, I think it's just, Steelers are done, brother. Steelers at the barbecue with my Giants. You have a seat. You can have a seat. What do we want? Baby back ribs? What do we want? Nice steak, little sirloin, little mignon, little flank. What kind of sides can I get you? You're on the same boat with me, brother. Excuses. See, when you guys lose, that's when the excuses come up. But when you're winning 5 in a row, 6 of 7, here we go. Oh, we're legit. Beat the Ravens. We're legit. Look at our defense. Oh, great move by Tomlin to go to Russell Wilson. Only a genius would do. Stop it. Huh. That just kills momentum of the show. There's no process to get generational talent, Trevor, in Pittsburgh. They need a quarterback, but I also gave you 16 teams that need quarterbacks. All right, what are your predictions tonight? Rams and Vikings. Let me hear. Rams and Vikings. What do you got? Vikings laying 2.5. The total is 47.5. Does Sam Darnold go off tonight? In fact, give me the stats right now for Darnold. What are you guys thinking? Give me the stats. Am I being too outrageous to think slinging Sammy Darnold goes 22? Let's jot it down, shall we? How about Darnold tonight? I'm going to say Darnold goes 26, 34, 263, 2 touchdowns. And we got it in paper, so you guys can hold me to it. 26, 34, 263, 2 touchdowns. Minnesota wins. Uh-oh, hold on. Madman chimes in. We're going to hold on. We're jotting it down. Let me hear what you guys have to say. 17 of 26, 274. Well, that's not bad. 274, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Minnesota, well, you guys don't believe Minnesota's going to win. Seems as though the sentiment, no process, just a good GM. All right, that's fine. We're second man. So Trevor is taking the lazy way out. He's basically, going to piggyback off another commenter's thoughts. Okay, fine. He's not original. Not a problem. 1726, 274. All right. Uh-oh, Vince. Well, who just basically wants to piss on Darnold. 14 of 31, $1.87. Man, that bad? Let me see. Hold on. Joe D. Joe D in the same boat. 12 of 26, $1.35 and 2 picks. Horrible. Hold on. Kevin C on Facebook. Here we go. 25 of 33, 288, 3 touchdowns. Not bad. All right. So you guys are not a believer in Sam Darnold. I do like the Vikings tonight. You know who I think's also going to have there you go. You know who I think's going to have a big game tonight? JJ. I think Jefferson's going to go off. You want to talk about force feeding? I think that's going to happen tonight. Tom in Summers Point chimes in. Q, I'm surprised you haven't even complained yet about A.J. Brown in a book. So it is 5:52. Has anyone heard me mention A.J. Brown reading a book? 5:52. I came on the air at 4 o'clock. Have I even brought it up? Couldn't care less. I don't care. Who cares? If Tom didn't even bring it up, I totally skipped my mind. Whatever. Apparently he does that all the time. Apparently now that book's on like Amazon's bestseller list. When you win, pretty much do whatever you want to do. Is there a prop for 2 picks for Darnold I can get on? You can do player props. Yeah. But see, I would not do that if I were you, Trevor, because I gave you 4 player props over the weekend. Thank you very much, but that's fine. You guys, you only point out the messes. I'm going to give you 2 player props. Let me give you a couple player props for tonight. Here's the first. So Darnold's rushing yards. The over-under is 11.5 tonight. Play the over. Sam Darnold rushing yards. 11.5. Play the over. Okay? Play the over. That's my first player prop. And that's a Sam Darnold. His over-under for passing is 276. His passing touchdowns tonight is 1.5. And I don't see picks anywhere from DK, BetMGM. You know what? I would play, I think Darnold throws for about 260 tonight. 260. And I believe he gets to 2 touchdowns. So now you're talking play the under, 276, the over at 1.5. But the rushing, I think you're going to see him scramble a couple times. I think you're going to, again, scramble a little bit. Hey, what happened to the sports bet app guy that looked like the bad guy? I'm done. I'm done. That's a great movie, by the way. Remember when they what they do with the dice? Oh, The Rock at his best. No, you cannot. That app is available, but I don't think they're taking player props right now. So. And the other player prop, hold on, let me give you one more. Let me just check my notes. Oh man, you guys are too much. What is the tight end from Minnesota? Hawkinson? His over for receiving yards is 44.5. I'm sorry, his total is 44.5. I like the over tonight. So I gave you Darnold over the rushing, Hawkinson over, and then obviously Jefferson, you would think anytime touchdown makes sense, right? I haven't really looked too much on the Rams, but that's a 3 for you. So, I only bet Super Bowl props, which I expect you to give me promptly on 127 episode of Man Up Monday. Yeah, we'll have some fun with that. All right, we do have to start wrapping it up on a Lunes Loco Manolo Man Up Monday edition of The Drive with Q. Good stuff from you guys for the last 2 hours. We'll be back in the saddle tomorrow on a Tuesday, and I do like the Vikings tonight. And as I said, Darnold play the passing yards under, his over on rushing. I gave you Hawkinson 44.5. Play that as well. We'll get into a little more of the head coaching vacancy tomorrow. Obviously, we'll start to look ahead to divisional round next week in the matchups. I mean, we're just waiting to see what transpires tonight. Minnesota or the Rams, one of those teams will be going to Philly to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, Vikings, Rams, 8 o'clock kickoff. Vikings laying 2.5. Neutral site, 47.5 is the total on that one. Also, we told you that Mike McCarthy will not be returning to the Dallas Cowboys coach in 2025. The Pats make it official. They bring back Mike Grable as their new head coach. And also, Eagles, tough loss. Dean, who's played phenomenal, their linebacker, is going to miss the rest of the playoffs with that bad injury yesterday in the win against Green Bay. All right, keep it locked in. Jay's coming up at 6 o'clock. Keep the comments coming and give them a follow. Check out the show, 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved on a Monday. And also, don't forget to download the app. You guys can tune in to the SR1029thegame.com. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football later on tonight at 8 to 9. He'll join me later on in the week. Jonathan Marshall on the NBA. Costco on college football. We'll do that on a Thursday as we take a look at the national championship game, which is set. We talked a little bit about that on Saturday. And I mean, listen, I hate the fact that you got to wait a week, but it is what it is, right? You have to wait a week. Ohio State, a big time favorite over Notre Dame, 8 points right now, 8.5 it sits. And that's Monday, January 25th in Atlanta, Georgia. That, of course, is the college football playoff national championship game, Ohio State against Notre Dame. So we'll talk about that later on in the week. Good stuff with the comments, good stuff with the text as well. You guys chiming in on Facebook, on X, and of course, right here on the show live as we always do. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. You guys have been phenomenal, keeping us entertained for the last 2 hours. Hope we did that as well. Enjoy Minnesota and the Rams back in the saddle tomorrow from 4 to 6 right here on SR 1029 FM. The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, and we are part of the Coastal Sports Network. You guys have a good Sports Monday, a Manolo Monday, a Man Up Monday, a Loco Lunes Monday. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Angel Martinez will be back in the saddle with me later on this week as well. You got Jay coming up, Lloyd Vance later on in the night. But again, we will see you tomorrow from 4 to 6. Be safe, be sound, and as always, hasta luego, buen día.